Thank you all for coming out. I really appreciate it. My name is Bob Swanson. I'm the faculty sponsor at FAAMSU, which is the secular student group here on campus. And yeah, I'm really excited about this evening. Wanted to start out with a few thank yous. First of all, my FAAMSU crew. Many of them are in the audience right now. Also want to thank the Secular Student Alliance. That's our national group, our local chapter of the Secular Student Alliance. And also the Free Open Religion Foundation, who provides the grant money to make this night possible. So I really appreciate their financial support. And without further ado, I'm not going to go into a great introduction of Darante. Some of you folks know Darante, and for some of you, this may be a brand new introduction. Darante is from Dothan, Alabama. And I'm going to let him tell his story of being a pastor and not being a pastor. And so you can give us his kind of background and talk about his current mission of building secular community. That's something that's really important to me here on campus. That's part of the reason why we've got a secular student group, is because I want to create a secular community here on campus, and something that's part of Darante's mission. He's going to tell us about that. And then we're going to spend a few minutes talking. I'm going to ask him a few questions, and that order will do the Q&A at the end. Awesome. Thank you, Darante.
No. All right, so let's talk a little bit first. I'm gonna echo some of the things that Bob just said. Bob, thank you for here. Secular Studios, learning space.
Yep.
See, I was gonna say the whole thing, but I didn't know if agnostic came first or atheist came first. So I was like, I'm gonna do what he did. I heard him say it, and I was like, I got it. And then I got up here and immediately thought, dang, how did he say it again? So I thank you all for bearing with me there. Thank you all for having me tonight. We're gonna talk through a little bit, and I'll kind of go through some of it. I was a pastor. I was in ministry for nearly 2 decades. I got saved at a very young age by the model church at a very young age. We'll talk through some of that tonight. Stayed involved up until 2014. Which is my official campaign, so I actually tell everybody at that time. I spent 10 years of my life and pausing, trying not to offend other people, trying not to let other people, say bless you and let's pray and let's say all the things we're thankful for and all those great things. And after a while, I realized it was hindering who I could be in real life. So let's be 24. I made a decision to start sharing a little bit more about who I was. So before we jump into that, let's kind of get some business, if I did this right. Yay! All right, so if you want to learn more about me, I do have some QR codes up here. Of course, in this ELTV, that's Discover, Learn, Develop, Do. That's my website. The second one, if you're interested in any of my books, I've written Black Non-Believer Next Door. We'll be talking a little bit about that tonight. As well as Christ Held Up, a similar of what we were talking about. It's taking Jesus so long. Why is it not that after 2,000 years? I do it in a very respectful and very tactful way, of course. And then, of course, Bridge City is a secular community that my team and I are working on trying to build and get launched in many different places. And so you can click that one to learn more there. And last but not least, we have a little shop called Window Shop. And for those of you who are in midst of being instruction or just interested about biblical history, church history, anything like that, we have a lot of study guide with preaching. It's just extra decoration where you can find information to go that genre on your own. And there's also some really dope merch on there, so check that out. And then next, this is the money stuff. If any of you want to support me, bam, they're up there. We got Patreon, Bridge City, that last one's PayPal, and you also got Cash App or Venmo, so take a shot of that, and we'll go from there. I want less traveling y'all do, but next weekend, I will be in California. We'll actually go and work with Bridge City SoCal, which is a part of our Bridge City Bold group. They're building our first chapter in LA and in San Diego, so I guess I should say chapter 8. All right, so I think I've done all my stuff. How many of you are familiar with a person by the name of Hubert Henry Harris? This guy, show of hands if you know this man. All right, yeah, we're going to come back to that. All right, so Hubert says, show me a population that is deeply religious, and I will show you a servile population, content with whips and chains, content to eat the bread of sorrow and drink the waters of affliction. How many of you are familiar with the New Negro movement? Yeah. Try it again. All over the songs?
Oh, okay.
That's the New Negro. You know who originated that movie? Hubert Henry Harris. A black atheist. Also, though, as black Socrates. Tonight we're going to talk through my confessions tonight. And I chose this quote for my first confession. I didn't believe in God as a child because I read a lot of African American history. I read a lot about people like Huey T. Harrison and why he started the work that he did, why the New Negro movement became a thing. How many of you know who Marcus Garvey is? He comes out of that movement because of Hubert Henry Harrison. How many of you know who Carter G. Woodson is? Oh, we got a lot of work to do. Okay, let's try this and do that. How many of you know who the father of Black history is? Oh, man, we got a lot of work to do. That's Carter G. Woodson. Carter G. Woodson is the reason we have a Black History Month, which started as a Negro History Week. He launched that after being in the Philippines and realizing how destructive colonization was on the people's desire for education. You know, for people who are not educated, they do not see themselves the makers of their own history, that they would follow behind. So he got involved with the work that Hubert Henry Harrison did. It was reading about these people. Let's try simpler than Frederick Douglass. Yeah. Have any of y'all ever read his works? Y'all know how he felt about the church? Not happy with it. What about Booker T. Washington? Also, you know how he felt about the church? Not happy with it. As a child, from the ages of 5 to about 11, I baptized myself in those words. And through their words, through their experience, Booker T. Washington, up from slavery, born into slavery in a Christian nation, you know, where he's not allowed to read, so he has to teach himself to read, learn how to read these things. These are things that I've learned that people who are oppressed and powerless learn how to do without God belief, without the need for God. And I know that may sound foreign to most people because when you think about their African American history, what's the first thing you think about? The Black church. Anybody with Philip A. Randolph? He is the reason you have what is known as the Civil Rights Movement. You said Dr. King got his nonviolence from Mahatma Gandhi. That is absolutely inaccurate. He got his nonviolence from the person who created the movement, Philip A. Randolph. Wouldn't know why you call it Randolph, Philip? He's an atheist. There's a certain phenomenon that I started noticing very young. I didn't give it a name until after I became converted, so now I call it Christchurch. Where some of the most prominent people in African American history not only did not believe in God, but were proudly profound humanists. It was not the church that led the Civil Rights Movement. As a matter of fact, was telling the truth, many of them had to be paid to participate. It was collectives of humanists, secular people, non-believers who did not have a deity in the sky, but saw the inhumanity that was happening in front of them every day. Even when I was a pastor, I used to tell people, like, why in the world do you need a burning bush to help somebody? Why do you need to feel a call to do something right? Why can't you just see that something is wrong and do something about it? So I was not a believer as a child because the only people I saw actually doing something about it were the ones who weren't way on trade and the ones who weren't way on offer. You know? So as a child, I didn't believe God. I read all the stories. I grew up in a family that were believers in the cultural sense. My granny went to church every now and then. She even joined what they called in the old missionary Baptist church of the Mothers of Old Work. But she made dang sure I knew every time she went to that preacher ain't getting my money. I watched them go to church when they go. My mother was a crack addict, so she didn't go. But I watched them when they go, I watched how they behaved. And it became very clear to me as a child, these people don't believe in God. There's something else they're getting from this. I can see the social cohesion. But there are little things that they would do. So, like Baptist Church, Bertie Shaw Street Baptist Church, number 5, you were told if you were a kid that if you walked across the pulpit, God would strike you down. You were told if you were a woman that you stepped in the pulpit, God would strike you down. You were told if you took communion and you weren't worthy, God would strike you down.
But as a kid, I'm watching people say this. But it seems no different than the same fairy tale, the same fear tactics that you use when you tell your kid, there's something under the bed, it's going to get you if you get out of the bed. And the reason I say that, because there's a little old woman who cleaned the church. And guess what she got clean? So when she's outside Sunday, just Tuesday, cleaning the pulpit, nobody says in this horror story, nobody says, oh, let's make sure you're clean. Did you anoint your forehead? And so as a child, I looked at all that and said, man, these people are clean. As a child, I looked at it, and these people have attached themselves to some kind of mythology and make it makes them feel good, but they don't really believe it's true, because if you really believed it's true, then you feel like God has your back. And that's not, see, I see you when you're not at church. Now, when you're at church, it's yes, God is great, God's doing all these wonderful things, but when you're at home, it's I can't win for losing. Why is it always me? I couldn't see that these people believe. Church was performance for a child. And the child was performance. It was emotion. Sometimes I'm sad, it's just immature. I'm hurt, I have pain, I don't know how to express it. Grandma taught me how to pray. I don't know if it'll work, and I'm just going to do it, and I'll pretend to be better after that, and therefore, never actually addressing the big issue. They call it. So in the beginning, I did not believe in God as a child. So what happened? What changed? I chose to believe by faith. Somewhere around 11th grade, my mother got involved in church, and she decided that, she really wanted to give this thing a try. She'd been battling drugs her whole life. And I want to make her sound like a bad person. Her mother was killed by her father. She was only 9 months old. And then she has to be raised by the mother of her mother, who is now raising the killer of her daughter. That is a set for dysfunction part of her, myself. But she got involved in a little holiness church. How many of you know what holiness church is that? She got involved in a little holiness church, Pentecostal tongue talkers. I'd never been to a Pentecostal church before as a child. So when I saw the Pentecostal church, I said, those people believe. There was nothing I saw in the Baptist church or an African Methodist Episcopal church that could have ever convinced me these people believe in a powerful God. Nothing. You singing songs that don't sound like power. You dressed it. All your ushers look mean. You know what I'm saying? Like, why do you take gum out of my mouth if you got all this power? But the Pentecostals, their God made them move. He made them run. He made them lay hands on people. He made them cry. He made them fall out. And they made you believe, oh, it's all God. Every emotion, every feeling you could experience in that moment, if you didn't know what it was, they did. Man, I think I'm crying. What is it? That's God talking to you. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I got these chill bumps. That's the Holy Ghost working on you, son. They're giving you a narrative for an experience you don't know how to define yet. A narrative for an experience you don't understand yet. And so in this atmosphere, my mother responded profoundly. She went down to the altar to get saved, and they didn't just save her. They cast devils out. And I was like, ooh. If God can change this hell, well, he might be real. Because my mother was pretty dang bad, man. I'm sorry. I said, damn, I'm not a Christian. I don't know what they'll call me. But, this God must be kind of powerful. Because I'm watching my mother, then she's crying, she's throwing up, she's repenting. Oh, God, I'm so sorry. I'm like, finally, this is something that could be real. I still wasn't quite convinced, right? But as a child, watching his mother, someone he's always wanted to see just love him. Someone he's always wanted to see just do better. And I'm like, God, if you really can do this, I'll step. I'll be tired. So I chose to do it by faith. God need to save my mother. And people like her. I don't see it now. I'm not 100% P-based. I'm not feeling what they're feeling. Maybe that's just because I'm not excited. Maybe it's just because I've never given you a chance. So God, then give you a chance. So I'm not saved. I got filled with the Holy Ghost, the evidence of speaking in tongues. And then my mother kicked me out of the house the next week for not buying a cigarette time. And I was a homeless kid for a few weeks. But I chose to believe by faith. So even in my house, my mother woke me up the next morning after I did all I knew she might be divided because I felt that God didn't want me to. She woke me up and she said, "You are going to serve me, or you're going to serve God." And I said, "I will serve God, Mom." And she said, "Well, you're going to get out of my house." And then when her house, it was an apartment, then there was other people's apartments. Like, you just saying that with you. And I'm like, y'all could have stood up. This ain't her house. But I got kicked out, walked like 5 hours to a minister's house who was a part of the church, and told her what happened. He just said, "Son, you got to go back and repent to your home." I was sincerely confused at that. You want me to repent for not buying my mother alcohol and cigarettes? When every Sunday, remember, this is a holiness church. Now, if it was a Baptist church, I don't understand. Catholic church, I don't understand. But it's a holiness church. If it makes you grin, it must be sin. And so like, you tell the people that I didn't go back and apologize for standing up in righteousness. I was perplexed, but what I wasn't was discouraged. I was actually convinced by that this must mean I really am called by God. That this must mean the devil doesn't want to see me work for God. So I delved in deep. Almost 4 weeks, finally moved in with my dad. But let's do the confession. Number 3, I was quickly starting to lose faith in people. By the time I graduated high school, which sorry, you can't tell my age, but I graduated high school in 2004. And when I graduated, I had already led 4 campus ministries in a row, went to 4 different dysfunctional families. Led 4 different campus ministries, Christians in Actions, First Spark Grade. I had led revivals. Like in 11th grade, I convinced the school to give me all the ISS students during the pep rally. ISS in-school suspension. Give me all of the since they can't go to the pep rally. Let them come to my prairie here at the pep rally. And I had those kids crying and confessing their sins and coming down to the stage crying out to the Lord. There was one kid who was like, "I used to be a Satanist and now I feel the presence of God." I was on fire. I watched amazing things. I watched people fall out of the power. I watched people claim to be healed. But I had one issue. I have no preacher pedigree. Nobody in my family was a preacher. I was the first. I was the first. I have no respect in the world of church. I don't walk into a building and they say, "Oh yeah, that's the old 3rd generation of preacher's son right there." Nobody knew me. So I was a rising preacher with no pedigree, which is an interesting gift. That means people show you who they really are. They show you who they really are. Especially when you're 16, 17, and 18, and 8, a year and nobody. That's all I really quick. I got kicked out of the church when I was 13, depending on who you asked. It's because either I was too saved or because I was the Antichrist. Can you imagine a culture that calls children the Antichrist? You want to know why? Because I went to church one Sunday and one Wednesday night, couldn't do the Bible study quiz because I didn't grow up like that. And they were kicking at me because I lost. So I was like, I ain't gonna lose next week. And so I went back next week in school now. And what the lady said, nobody can do that except by power and Beelzebub. Yeah. I was losing faith in people. One of my favorite pastors, his name is David, and then man, I love that man. White Baptist Chicago, pastor church of Ozark Drive, one of the largest churches. It was a multiracial church, one of the first ones I had seen in the South. And notice I did not say biracial. I said multiracial. In the South, we act like it's just black and white. But we had people from Puerto Rico, we had people from all over the world. It was the first time I had seen anything like that. And he preached such a wonderful message of the Spirit of life in Jesus Christ. And he would talk about how God would heal any disease and how God would raise people from the dead. And he had led revivals when we had these claims. When we had these claims that people were getting out of wheelchairs and that people's eyesight were being restored. And that all of these other type of diseases that nobody could verify were being healed. And I believed. I was there until he died at 50. And when he died, I was at work. Well, I'm just out of work. I was working at Walmart, 3rd shift. I was at my little house, and someone came to the door and he said, "Pastor David's down." I had just got home at like 7 o'clock in the morning because I worked the 10 to 7 shift. And I said, okay, we're going to Frankfurt, right? At this time, I'm 17 years old and I'm naive. And they're like, what do you mean? What do you mean, what do I mean? We're the church that believes in raising people from the dead. Our pastor just died in the middle of a revival where he's talking about God is going to give us the opportunity to raise people from the dead. Everybody looked at me kind of like y'all looking at me right now. Like, well, shut your mouth and get out of here. We got plenty of people don't find out we're going to leave this church. And that bothered me because I wasn't pretending. When you were shouting about this, I thought you were shouting because you thought it was true. When you're amening him, when you were up there preach, pastor, I thought you were doing that because you thought it was true. I watched y'all go get the money on the altar. And are you telling me that there's not one time that you even considered that was possible? That was hard for me because I really did believe it was possible. Remember, I chose to believe by faith. But the more I stay in, the more I realize people have a narrative. They don't have a real experience. They don't have a real understanding. This even begin to get worse when I became a pastor and started having to counsel people. I remember counseling several members who would be on Sunday mornings, I hear the Lord, and this is what God is saying to this house. The Lord just told me your son is such and such. God is speaking to me right now on your behalf. And those same people are in my office on Tuesday afternoon. Pastor Barnabas speak to me. Wait a minute. Just Sunday, we just prophesied like 15 people in my church, telling them what you said God told you. And now you're telling me in here, when nobody's looking, how does God speak to me? And at first, I was addicted. I was pissed. How could you play with God like that? Oh, Darante, the same with you. You're mad at them for doing it. Why are you doing it? Because I chose to believe by faith, to speak those things that be not as though they were. See, y'all ain't Pentecostal, y'all ain't living these scriptures. I decided to stand on faith, to walk by faith and not by sight. So even though it doesn't make sense, maybe that is God. I hear some things in my mind, maybe that's God. And maybe if I stand on that in faith, God will reward that by showing me that. And I'm willing to put on that face in front of you, not just because I'm trying to pretend, but it's because I can't let the narrative die. It's like a little kid who has a sibling, and the kid knows that Santa isn't real, but they also know they got to play along because I have to protect the narrative. Because it's not just about me, it's about the other people. So then it got worse. I was losing faith in the gospel. That started there. I remember, and that was like a slippery slope for me because it started, I was a revivalist, if y'all can't tell. So I was the guy, like, preaching got good, everybody standing up, you in the spirit, I take my jacket off, and I'd come over there and throw my jacket. Fire! And everybody would fall out and do all that good stuff. I stopped. I had a reason to. There was no complaints. Services were awesome, energetic. But I stopped because I started thinking about being true to ourselves. When one time there was two young men who had like cast on their arms. I said, y'all come up here. Y'all want to be healed? I'm like, yes, sir. Take those casts off your arm. They did it. And church goes crazy. Everybody says, surely a miracle has been done. And even though I'm in the moment rhythm, in my mind, I start thinking about all these barriers that I actually don't know. I don't know how long you had that cast on. That cast was probably supposed to come off last week, for all I know, and your mama said keep it on a little longer just to be sure. I don't know if your arm was broken, sprung. I don't know if you just wear casts because you like it. I don't know anything about this story. All I have is the moment and a narrative, and I can say whatever I want to say because I'm the man with the microphone, and these people have already been trained to believe it because it meets their confirmation bias. That made me feel very uncomfortable. Because the next thing is, I can't actually tell the difference between when God is actually doing a miracle and I'm just egging people on. That's uncomfortable for me. And then I also started thinking about the little old lady who comes to my event, knows she's looking like for God, and she's expecting a miracle to happen. And I told her, God heals everybody. And you come, you believe, you pray, you give, and then you leave, and nothing happened. And you're wondering, why doesn't God love? I did that to you. You know? So I stopped. I literally had a prayer with God, and I said, you heal, you're gonna have to do it. I shouldn't have to tell anybody. I shouldn't have to set the stage, and it's just not something I'm nowhere. I'm not gonna carry out because of all of the healings I've seen in my life, none of them were anything that I can say was legitimate, young Sheldon Begout. And in every case, there was always someone worse off in that room. There was always someone worse off in that room. And those are the people who left the mark on my life. So I was losing faith in the gospel because the gospel promised all of these things that could not actually be delivered on. At best, we could say, when you die, you may not burn in hell. And if there is no hell, then at least you did a little bad. Oh, okay. Okay, if you've ever seen my video on what's the worst that could happen with Christianity, then check it out. All right, so I was losing faith in the gospel. My church did very well. My second church, I pastored my first church in Jacksonville, Florida, Clinton. We actually stole our building. We stole our building, but we did it by faith, so God loved it. Saw a building, nobody was using it. My keyboard player at the time, he was actually proficient in breaking into stuff. But we did check first. We checked, could not find the owners. And so we broke in the building and started having church services. And one day as we were leaving the church, the owners showed up. And said, hey, what are y'all doing? We had church service. How did y'all get in? Oh, my brother just opened the door. Yeah. I'm sorry, y'all. What are y'all doing? The Lord sent me here to start a church. I'm from Dothan, Alabama. You're from Alabama? We're from Eufaula. That was it. And then they said, yeah, keep meeting. But I pastored my second church in Dothan, one of the fastest growing churches in the city. Not saying much, Dothan was not a big city, but it was one of the fastest growing churches in the city. Did very well. We were outreach friendly. Just had a powerful church. I left a lot of the Pentecostal stuff behind. Really just focused on people. And that's when things really started to crack for me because there was no message that I could preach that would really change your life. The most I could do would change your mind. And the problem is the things that I was changing your mind with is Bronze Age bad advice. You know, advice like literally cast all your cares on the Lord because he cares for you. Okay, let me explain something. In a cultural context where you have a support system, that's fine. Because when your life isn't going in the way it needs to go, your support system is going to support you regardless of what foolishness you believe. But when you are part of a cultural context where you do not have a support system, casting your cares on an invisible person is dangerous. It is dysfunctional and it is destructive. It is how you get dysfunctional families because parents are casting their cares on the Lord instead of reading a book about parenting. Bad advice. It's bad advice. I started noticing patterns where my members who were poor, really poor, were making incredibly bad decisions on faith moves. And I couldn't blame them because I was preaching it. I was preaching it. And I started wondering, like, what's going on? But they said stuff like, you know, some of y'all might remember this one. He's an on-time God, right? He may not come when you want him, but he'll be there right on time. Well, number one, if you did not come when I sent for your ass, you were not on time. I'm sorry, I did it again. If you're an on-time God, then you got to be here on time. That's what on time is. But can you imagine what you do to a people when they no longer have permission to speak to the cause and effect? Okay? So now, even when God doesn't show up, I have to pretend that he did. Another phenomenon I started to notice around this. I'm pretending that God is taking care of everything. Won't he do it? Yes, he will. He's off his own time. Jesus paid it all while we're going into increasing debt, while our families are falling apart, while our children are starting to despise it. Jesus is taking care of everything any day now. And after a while, I started noticing that people saw themselves as passive, powerless. I actually noticed it in myself. Anytime anything hard would happen in life, I can't do this. This is too much for me. How am I ever gonna make it out of this? I don't know how I'm gonna make it. I'm not gonna do this. And then one day, you gotta hear me. Like, did you say that last time, though? And the time before that? Like the time before that? Like, dude, you've been somebody for a really long time, but you're treating yourself like just anything can take you out. What's up? Why? Why do I feel so snagged? Like we're rich, undone, like we're worm, like filthy rags, like there's nothing I can do to ever earn your price, like I'm nothing without you. You start realizing, like, oh my goodness, most of these words have cultivated an identity within me that makes me feel like I'm not capable of even having any impact on my life. And both of these words were coming from the gospel or apostle. They have a lot of holes. I was looking straight at the gospel. I was realizing that we're preaching salvation, but we can't even keep people safe. I was realizing that as a pastor, my job is to get you excited about heaven while watching your life talk in real life and not have any real answers or any real hope. And I couldn't do that. But I started finding faith in myself. I did. Proverbs says, lean not into your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge the Lord, and he will direct your paths. And from the time I saw one another throwing up beacons, like gang signs, I guess, I decided I'll trust the Lord. So lean not to my understanding. So we believe by faith. I was still very much a skeptic, but I said I would not lean into my own understanding. I'm going to trust the Lord. And I did it from the time I was 11 until the time I was 28. I remember sitting in my car with tears in my eyes. It's like, what else can I do? I've done everything. Obviously, as actor. But, that's a neat feeling of those moments. God, I've given you all of me. I've given you, like at that moment, I was definitely killed, but I was very depressed. I've given you my best years. I gave you my childhood. I gave you my teenage years. I didn't go to the parties. I didn't do the thing old people were doing. I was the weird kid who stayed 4 hours a day praying. Yes, the weird kid. God gave all of this to you. I can't keep pretending you're showing up when you're not. I can't keep telling you you show up when you're not. I have to be able to just kind of admit what this is now. And for me, it's just me. God, I tried, and the thing was, for me, I didn't, saying go through the angry atheist phase? I didn't go through that. It was relief for me. I just immediately relieved. My whole life made sense. Awesome moment. Darante, you can unfaithful to yourself. That's why your life feels like this. That's why you feel like yourself. Everybody's religion doesn't happen that way. Everybody's Christianity doesn't happen this way. You heard my story. You heard how I got it. I was hooked, live, and singer. So I had a stronger attachment to it than most. Get everything. But at that moment of realization, that moment of breakthrough for me, it wasn't about hating God for not showing up. It was about finally realizing that I'm expecting somebody to show up who was never going to in the first place. You know, it was finally realizing that the belief wasn't necessarily a problem, that God wasn't the problem. The problem was me. I needed to be honest with myself. I needed to be willing to trust myself. I need to be willing to say, Darante, you don't believe this is God, but you hate God. You just don't have a legitimate reason to believe that He is. And if there is one, fine. But you don't have to force yourself to believe something that you don't actually believe. That's not it. Which led me to that next place. I was getting on there with being alone into that. The immediate you read, kid. Okay. My life doesn't suck because angels and demons are fighting. My life sucks because I made some real poor decisions with a really good heart. I had a really good heart and I made those poor decisions. But they were still poor decisions, you know? And I came face to face with that. So I started dealing with the next thing, because this is where the fear kicks in. So then I say, if you don't believe in God, how do you think we die? What do you think happens after we die? You want to know what I'm going to say to you? I don't actually care. Like, in all honesty, I didn't care as a pastor. That's not what Christianity answered for me. That's not why I got involved. I didn't become a Christian because it had the best answer on how we got here. Mud and a rib? No, that is not the best explanation of how we got here. I assure you. I assure you. Oh, you just think that man evolved from apes. You think we evolved from mud? Who has the better argument here? Okay, I'm sorry, not just mud, but mud and a side of mud ribs. Don't play with me. Don't do that. Goodness gracious. So I was becoming okay with being alone. I realized, like, oh, this idea, well, how do you explain life? Nobody's ever trying to explain life. That was a red herring if I've ever seen one, almost in my entire life. Ain't nobody out there saying my religion explains the universe for me. That's an apologist line. People are religious because it meets personal needs, feels something with them. And that's what I realized, man, I don't care how we got here. My son does, that's why he's interested in physics and astrophysics. I'm not. I'm interested in art, in music, what we feel, how we live, how we treat each other. There are smarter people than me to solve those bigger problems. So even when Christians ask me, if you're an atheist, how to explain the universe? First of all, I'm an atheist, not an astrophysicist. You're asking the wrong A word, okay? No, why would you ask a random person to explain how the universe got here? Well, that tells me that you're being disingenuous. If you really want to know that answer, ask the people who've actually spent their lives studying it. See how that makes sense? You know, that's a little tricky. I was okay, leave me alone. Universe doesn't have to have a creator. And actually, I came to the conclusion that it has no utility. See, if there is a creator, he's had at least 200,000 years to reveal himself to humanity globally. Apparently, that's a trick he cannot pull off, okay? Or it's a trick he doesn't care to pull off. Either way, it makes the idea of God in my finite mind 100% useless. Can't see you, can't touch you, can't feel you, can't measure you. Yeah, don't need it. Don't need it. And that's literally what that was the relief. I thought that I had to hold on to God in order to be a good person. I thought that I had to hold on to God to have any type of life. I felt like I had to hold on to God. That happiness, if I let God go, all of the dominoes are gonna fall. I was 508 pounds when I made that decision. Look at it. The dominoes will be out the way. I was broken, I was confused, I was depressed, I was in debt, I was discontented, and when I let go of that, found myself, became okay being alone, I found my strength. I used to tell people when I stopped believing in miracles, that's when I became one. Oh, what confession said it. I was content. Because remember I told you, I stayed in the closet for 10 years. 10 years. I tried to tell people in the beginning, it ended up with me getting arrested with 5 felonies that I had to fight.
Actually, I didn't tell them I didn't believe in Jesus. I told them I didn't believe in Santa Claus. Nah, that's serious. Sluts. Jesus, he relaxed. We gotta go ahead and get him now.
So he left.
Yeah. Get him now. Santa's like the gateway drug. Y'all didn't know. Y'all didn't know. But no, people were upset. So I said, okay, I can't really talk to people. I mean, it was so bad. I felt like I was going to lose my life. I was telling my wife, like, listen, if they do decide, like, lock me up, you could go marry somebody else, but I can't have my daughters raised without a father. Can't have you out your life. So she was like, boy, shut up. And I was like, well, I'm in prison. You need to go, dude. I called my aunt crying. So aunt who raised me. And she said, what's going on? I said, they got these charges on me. She said, why? They found out I don't believe in Jesus anymore, auntie. Oh, well, you deserve it. This is the woman I love my whole life. And she's literally telling you, you deserve to be falsely arrested and imprisoned if you don't believe in my imaginary friend. That moment explains so much of your life all day. I'd always felt, and it's my story, nobody else, but I always felt like something was powerful in my life. And at that moment, I realized like religion had really done a number on my family because like none of them were living religious lives. They just had to believe. Like my dad, y'all don't know, so I could tell this business. My dad is like horrible adultery. Horrible adultery. Not even ashamed about it, you know? But he had a friend, one of his best friends. And he found out his friend was a Muslim. And he kicked him out of his car on the highway. The adulterer kicked out the Muslim because we use different languages to describe our imaginary friends. Stuff like has devastated, you know? But I was still pretending because I didn't want to. I'm gonna tell you the truth. One is because I didn't want to hurt other people. It was two, because I could not handle that rejection. To have someone that I love to do it crazy, tell me I deserve to be a criminal, even if I wasn't. That is, whew, that was hard, but it let me see what I was really dealing with. And what I was dealing with beyond that, it kind of kicked me into back to myself. I just talked about my atheism, my humanism at home. When people come up, there were people who knew I was an atheist, but every time they come over my house, hey, Darante, come pray over the food. Because I guess they thought if I prayed, it'd just bring me back, you know. Like, oh, see, God got now. I'm like, look, God could have got me. If you get knocked, could have got way back in. I don't know why he choose. He just be an audience this time. I'm not sure. I shouldn't even be a priority on his list. There's a whole bunch of kids with cancer. We should probably stop there. But I was thinking, that didn't really hit me until I was in a business. And everything's going really well. People are really excited. Then all of a sudden, okay, let's pray so we have Jesus' blessing. And the person in the business meeting definitely knew I was atheist. And also knew I was a podcast. And my mom had been doing the same thing to every I'm over the hours, turn on gospel music, blare it up. And I'm like, you don't even go to church no more. I don't know why we're doing this. But it was all like, trying to play this game to just keep adding at him. We'll get him back in. We'll get him back. We keep adding him. And that finally felt disrespectful. Because that's not what I'm doing with you. When you come to my house and when I go to your house, I'm not saying this is the day that I'm going to convince you to leave your God. I'm not thinking this is the day that I'm going to finally convince you. Whatever you believe is your right to believe. Whatever you value is your right to value. I will respect your humanity, but you will also respect mine. And I wasn't as much mad at them about that as I was at myself. I realized, Darante, this is what you do to yourself. By being afraid just to be yourself. By pretending that there's something wrong with you for not sharing what they believe. By pretending that somehow you're problematic. You're not doing anything to them, but just by existing as something different, you're the problem. A project that needs to be fixed. I resented that anger. And it made me resent it for everybody else who has to deal with it. Because it isn't just for atheism, it isn't just for belief. It can be gender, it can be sexuality, it can be age.
It's a shame. None of us should have to hide who we are for the comfort of others. You don't like who I am, don't be me. It's really that simple, you know? So, I could no longer be world more. I wanted to walk away and just leave it alone. I actually wanted to just kind of float when nobody knew what I was, you know? Because I still love church. I love church. This is what built community. I still love church. I still helped out the church plenty of times, as long as I could. Until I realized, like, I can't bother it no longer. And again, it's not harmful for everybody, but there's certain class communities and certain cultural areas that it is more dangerous and destructive for. And I am a part of those culture class communities. And so I could not ignore that harm. I had a sister who I love her from both parts, and she made just the worst sins over and over and over again, believing that it's okay because my God works in mysterious ways. I watched my nieces and my nephews' lives get destroyed. You know, it's because of people like me. You preached in good faith. In good faith. We sincerely, people like paint preachers as just these cars. They had some Marshall there. But you got to remember, you don't just step outside of a preacher. You started with Jews. You started under the same teacher. So most pastors, they believe the same way people accused you. And when it doesn't work the way they think it's supposed to work, they have to make the same excuses everybody else does. Again, that's the same thing that I went through with my members. Why are you pretending that you fear God when you only don't? Well, the same reason Luther does. We're part of the same barricade. So I couldn't know that. I realized I was trying to speak out. I was reading a book by Sam Fay. Hey, that's not his name. By Sam Maris. Called Married to a Christian Nation. And there's one part in there where he says, a really scary thought. If there could be an asteroid heading to this planet right now to destroy it, and there's a healthy amount of people on this planet, healthy amount of our population, that will get on their knees and say, "Come, Jesus, come," because they think it's their will going to redeem the planet. And sure, maybe that's something that would have been a big deal for me if I read it 20 years ago. But in a world where we're learning so much more about this universe that we live in, there are much darker thoughts in there. I'm gonna say something really crazy, but it's possible, okay? Literally, aliens could show up now and pretend to be Jesus and destroy half of the planet, and the other half will praise them for doing it. That is insane. And you don't have to look far to know, yeah, that's a real possibility. Because right now, according to many believers, we have one of the most Christianist presidents we've ever had. And that's how easy it is. I'm gonna move on. I'm not gonna take this. This is my last confession of the night. This is my last confession of the night. But I didn't mean to God evil. In 2014, I walked away. And I walked away from my pulpit, my church, my marriage at that time. I was terrified because church has been my whole life. It's been my whole career. It's been everything I have. My whole life has been about helping people, serving people. And I honestly felt, I'm not going to be able to do that. Who's going to trust an atheist to help people? You know? How do I look to my own name when our culture has been so Christ-washed with Christianity that being black is seen synonymous with being a believer? By many people, I was immediately saying that's an outsider, a betrayer, you know? But the thing that I was most terrified of, because I wanted to, of course, what preaching I wanted to do was immediately start telling me, oh man, no, I gotta tell you. Do you know where this came from? Have you ever studied the canonization of scripture? I wanted to start telling everybody you need. But I had one solitary thought. What if they lose, but you lost? Would you be okay with that? You go tell them this. They believe. They lose the only family they ever had.
You go tell us. Didn't leave. All of a sudden, people that loved them yesterday despise them today. You go tell them this. And they believed you. Somebody at their job finds out they don't believe anymore. Now their livelihood is gone. And that, I can't do that to people. That's probably the reason I stay for life. But I wasn't tossed by. I was thinking. I was planning, strategizing, prepared. Because I didn't let my what if stop there. I answered the question. So Darante, if that happens, what needs to happen next? We need to have something to grill the gap. We need to have soft spaces for people to land. And it's not just about people deconverting. It's not just about people deconstructing. It's about people finding health without coercion. It's about people finding health without superstition. It's about people trying to get clarity without being forced into certainty or conformity. It's about people just being able to be human. I started what we now call our Sunday sessions in March of last year. Where every Sunday, I do exactly what I did for nearly 2 decades of art. So now, it's fully exercised. I'm not doing it because I want people to get saved. I'm not doing it because I want people to receive me as their teacher. I actually don't nobody's teacher. I'm one of those believers that education, that learning is active, not passive. You know, teachers are wonderful. But you know what teachers really love? Having some learners on their touch. Oh man, you pair a teacher with a learner? As I don't want to be everybody's teacher, I want to get my source of truth. Trust me, you don't want to follow all my truths. I be pineapple on juice. Sorry. It's great. It's wonderful. Pork goes with, with pineapple. They both start with P. Works out. That's how it works in the food environment. But I really I need to get the other result. I need a flame. With some other people. And I need to pay attention to what people actually need. I need to not jump out there and just start telling people, hey, this is what you need. I have your answers. Do this to change your life. Nope. I need to start listening. Start paying attention. Start reflecting back both all of my years in ministry and ask myself a lean focused question, what were people coming for? But there wasn't a God because there was no God showing up. What were people coming for? There wasn't a healing because nobody was really getting healed. What were people coming for? For other people. It's really that simple. It's why when you're driving that way to somewhere to eat, you look at the restaurant with like 2 cars in the parking lot. You look at the one with like 35. You pick that one. Unless you're being antisocial. Because people love people. We need people. We're energized by people. A lot of the experiences we had in church that they considered to adopt people's experiences. Watch your Lit Michael Jackson concert. You see the same thing after the Vinny show. I promise you. I think that's what Vinny got. They both wearing the same white outfit. This is my I'm telling you. Y'all know who Vinny is? Anybody know Vinny? Who's my guy? All right. I didn't need a dollar to be whole. I needed a plan. I needed a blueprint. I needed a community. And that's what I started those Sunday sessions to start sharing the story, start sharing the mission, to start showing people what's possible, to show people that yes, you can give people encouragement, you can give people motivation, you can empower people without having to appeal to anything that you cannot demonstrate. It's completely unnecessary. You can make people feel good about themselves without making them feel like they have to conform or change their ideals about them. You can actually talk to people about doing better with their lives without even taking their faith from them. But at the end of the day, it's just people. This is why people get mad at me for I don't do debates. I don't. I do wine every time, man. But even now, it's got to kind of pull away from. Because I don't want that to be how people see you. I'm not here to try to change your life. I'm here to create spaces that if you ever want to change your life, there's a safe space for you to do. If you ever want to ask tough questions, there's a place for you to do. So we have members of Bridge City who are Christian. They're just what I like to call Christians on the fringe. So they believe a lot of weird things that other Christians don't, believe, but that's literally every Christian. Be a pastor long enough, you realize no two Christians believe the same thing. But that's just it. That's the experience of life. No two people can believe the same thing fully about everything. We get touched differently. I feel that differently than you do. That's why I even judge people about their cane. You have somebody do something, they're crying or whatever, you're like, yeah, it ain't hurt. If you do it, right? And it hasn't you. That's their pain. You don't hate your pain. And like that, you crying, it obviously hurt. But it's like, no, I didn't need a God. Nor did I have to take me by the spouse. Just have to go. If they lose their God and it makes them better, I'm happy. If they just gain a little bit more critical thinking and still hold on to their God without harming others, I'm cool with that. I got a lot of friends that were in a lot of B&B, a lot of weird things. I got people who believe Anakin was the good guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, nah, Palpatine was the right one the whole time, It's the Jedi who did that. They the ones always calling him Trump. Think about it. Who was the ones always throwing the first thought? It was the Jedi. I'll let you think about it. You think about it. I get back to you. But it's those communities working with each other. It's loving each other. It's figuring out what can we do to help, getting out of our own way, and asking what do people want from us? What do people want from each other? What do people need? What's driving people crazy right now? What is keeping people in depression? What is keeping people anxious? And let's create conversations around it. My religion is humanity. My religion is humanism. I tell people all the time, the way I view it, we are space apes on a floating rock. We have no choice but to work together. That's why I choose humanism. Again, I told you, when I loved God, I wasn't mad, I wasn't angry. My last prayer to God, to the Almighty, now on, instead of loving people through you, I'm just going to love people. And if that's important to you, then you and I should have no problems. Not angry. I just want to do a better job happy. I tried my best to help people with Christianity, and I watched you ruin a lot of lives, and I had to pretend like it wasn't. I had to find ways to say, no, that was a good thing, that was the right thing happened. God was about to flip this thing around. And now I just really want to create a space where people can live in their own freedom, in their own identity, even if you're making mistakes, even if you don't get it right. That's how you want it. Embrace failure. Get out there, fall over and over and over again. And that's how you want it. And as long as you're doing that, I'm going to be doing my best to those communities that celebrate you while you're doing, that make it safe for you while you go here, and that promotes your stories. Because that's what we need. We need that reminder that living is human, failing is human, succeeding is human, loving is human, healthy is human. No gods, no beliefs necessary. If you had them, fine. But at the end of the day, please don't let anything stand in the way of your humanity or your empathy for others, because again, you're space apes on a floating rock, and I'd love to see that show up. All right, so those are my confessions. And again, the end. And then nice go. Again, if you want to connect with me, learn more about me, here are all my QR codes up here. If you want to support the words that we do, these are also my QR codes. And I think we're going to go into a little bit of Q&A. I want to thank my sons and my daughters over there at Mall, being here to support tonight. I could not do this without their help. And that's all I have for now.